Every night before bed, he presses his palm flat against the same spot on his kitchen wall. Just for a second. Just to feel it's still there. Nobody else in the house knows what's behind that wall. Not even his wife, not for the first 3 years of their marriage. He spends his days telling other people exactly where to put their money. Banks, bonds, index funds. Diversify, he says. Don't keep it all in one place. Trust the system. The system protects you. Then he drives home, walks past his own front door, and checks on the one account no bank statement will ever show. Cash. Wrapped tight in plastic. Sealed behind drywall, he installed himself on a Sunday afternoon while his wife thought he was fixing a leak in the hallway. He was 22 years old the night everything changed. His father came home from the bank where he'd worked for 18 years, sat down at the table, and didn't say a single word. He just pulled out a calculator, added the same 3 numbers, over and over. Like doing the math one more time might change the answer. It never did. He remembers driving home from college that weekend and finding moving boxes already stacked in the garage, half packed like his parents had started before they'd told him anything at all. His father wasn't a teller. He was a branch manager, the guy who looked customers in the eye every single day and told them their money was safe. That same week, his own bank failed. Some of the money came back, most of it never did. His father's retirement, gone in 11 days. Neighbors still waved every morning like nothing happened. Nobody said a word about it at church, at dinners, anywhere, not even close family. Shame stays silent, even when everybody already knows. He watched his father get smaller that whole year. Not physically. Somewhere behind the eyes. At dinner, he'd stare at his plate longer than he ate from it. Like counting the food somehow made him feel steadier. His mother went back to work at 51. His father took a new job eventually, a smaller title, a smaller check, and a smile that stopped reaching his eyes. Something locked into place in this man that year, and it never fully unlocked. Paper promises can vanish overnight. A number on a screen can disappear in one bad afternoon. But cash in your hand, cash nobody else controls, stays real no matter what happens on some Tuesday morning far away. He studied finance anyway. Got good at it. Really good. Within a decade, he was managing money for people who trusted him completely, walking them through downturns, staying calm when everyone else panicked, telling them the system this time was different, safer, better than before. Clients called him during crashes just to hear him say one sentence: stay the course. The plan still works. He meant it every time he said it. He just never once applied it to himself. One client called him crying in 2020, convinced everything was collapsing all over again. He stayed on the phone for 40 minutes, walked her through every number, calmed her down completely. Then he hung up the phone, walked straight to that same wall, and pressed his palm against it. His salary grew. His house grew too. Bigger rooms, higher ceilings, new counters, and a kitchen his wife had wanted for years. And behind one wall in that same room sat $11,000 that existed nowhere on paper, invisible to every account he managed for every person who trusted him with theirs. 3 years into the marriage, a contractor came to renovate that space. He pulled back a section of drywall to run new wiring and found something he wasn't expecting. Cash, banded in stacks, hidden behind pink insulation like it had been waiting there the whole time. His wife was standing right there when it happened. She didn't yell. She didn't say a single word at first. She just stood there, holding a flashlight, staring at $11,000 her husband had never once mentioned, not during tax season, not during a single conversation about their future, not once in 3 years of marriage. And in that moment, she realized there was a version of her husband living behind a wall in her own kitchen. A stranger she had never actually met. Someone who had been standing right beside her the whole time. That night, She didn't ask him to explain right away. She just handed him the flashlight and walked into the house. He followed her in silence, holding $11,000 in his hands like it might disappear if he loosened his grip. They sat down at the same table his father once sat at, calculator in hand, 17 years earlier. Only this time, he was the one who had to explain. He talked for almost an hour that night, longer than they'd talked in years. He told her about the bank, the branch manager badge his father wore for 18 years, the calculator, the boxes in the garage. He told her about neighbors who kept waving like nothing happened, and a mother who went back to work at 51. He told her he'd sworn, quietly, at 22, that this would never happen to him. Not because he didn't trust banks with other people's money. He trusted them completely with other people's money. He just couldn't trust them with his own. She didn't argue with him. She didn't call it irrational, even though some part of her wanted to. Instead, she asked one question: how long? He said it was since before they even met, since his first real paycheck. Every year, a little more, sealed behind a wall, untouched, earning nothing, protecting nothing, except one 22-year-old version of himself that never quite left that kitchen table. Psychologists have a name for what happens next. A kind of learned distrust. It settles into people who watched an institution fail someone they loved. It doesn't always look like fear. Sometimes it looks like control. Sometimes it looks like a man telling strangers to trust a system he privately refuses to trust himself. His wife didn't leave that night. She didn't threaten to, but something between them changed anyway. Quietly, the way real change usually does. She started noticing things she'd missed for 3 years. The way he flinched slightly whenever the stock market dropped on the news, even when his own money was untouched. The way he never once suggested investing that $11,000, even after everything he knew. A few months later, their son asked him a simple question while they were fixing a shelf together. "Why is there a hole in this wall, Dad?" He froze for a second. Then he told his son the truth, a version small enough for an 8-year-old to hold. Sometimes grown-ups keep a little bit of money somewhere safe, just in case. His son nodded like that made perfect sense. Kids don't ask why safe means a wall instead of a bank. Not yet. He didn't empty the wall after that conversation with his wife. He didn't pretend the fear was gone either. Instead, he did something smaller. He started telling her the number once a year out loud instead of letting it live only behind drywall. Saying it to another person made it real in a different way than hiding it ever had. It didn't erase 18 years of watching his father shrink, but it turned a secret into a shared weight, and shared weight is lighter than the kind you carry completely alone. Financial freedom was never his real problem. He'd solved that years ago. The real problem was a promise a system made to his father in 2008. That promise broke. He made his own promise that same week. And he never went back to change it, not even after everything else changed around him. Money didn't create that fear. Watching someone he loved get hurt by trusting the wrong thing did. He still meets clients every week, still shakes hands with total confidence. He still tells them to trust the plan, stay the course, diversify. He means every word. And some nights, before bed, he still walks to that wall and presses his palm flat against it, the same way he did the first night he built it, just to feel it still there. $11,000 quiet, real, untouched, a small monument to a Tuesday morning that ended 17 years ago, but never actually left the house. Never fully let go of him either. So here's the question worth sitting with tonight. How much of your life is still being run by a fear that already ended years ago? If this story made you think differently about money and fear, follow for more stories like it and send it to someone still guarding a wall of their own.